they don't get the plate.
All right, ready?
Ready?
All right, good evening. It is 7 p.m. on January 17th, 2023, and I'm calling a meeting of Human Affairs Committee in the Aldermanic Chamber. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Lopez.
I'm here.
Alderwoman Shoshana Kelly is here. Alderman Patricia Klee. Alderman Melbourne Moran.
Here.
And Alderwoman Gloria Timmons.
Here.
We have 4 members present.
Also in attendance, we have Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager. And just a note for the public, our usual clerk, Alderman Klee, couldn't make it tonight, so Alderman Kelly is filling in. She's our vice chair. Okay, so opening at the beginning, we have a public hearing on FY 2024 CDBG and Home Program Annual Action Plan Development. Mr. Urban Programs Manager Long, would you mind coming up and giving us a quick summary of that?
Good evening, everyone. The Community Development Block Grant Program and Home Investment Partnership Program are both grants that the city receives from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. They're both focused on serving low to moderate income residents. For CDBG, we often provide subgrants to many nonprofit agencies in a variety of work. Funds can be used for housing, homelessness, educational needs, childcare, a variety of services as long as they're focused on low to moderate income residents. The home program is focused on affordable housing developments, again, for low to moderate income residents. We do not apply for these funds. We are what HUD calls an entitlement community, which means we receive them based on formulas every year. But as part of that, we do have to submit an action plan every year to say how we intend to use the funds. And also at the end of the program year, provide a report on how that year's funds were actually used. So as part of this process, we do consultations with service providers on community needs and also public engagement to determine what residents believe the funds should be used for. This will be the first of 2 formal public hearings. The second will be held after the action plan is drafted and made available to the public. But public feedback is welcome at any and all times. And I encourage anyone who is interested in how these funds are used to feel free to contact me. My information is on the city website under urban programs. Thank you.
Just some clarifying questions. We received a communication with some information. Is that going to be on the urban planning's website, or is that something they should look to the minutes for this meeting?
I can make it available. It is not currently on the website, but I'm happy to make it available.
Okay, because I noticed it did carry some of that feedback that we received from the community, things of that nature.
Yes, that is correct. As part of the process of gathering public input, we did have an online community development survey this past fall, and we received, I believe, 11 or 12 responses, and a summary of those responses can be made available on the Urban Programs website as well.
Okay, and they've given us an estimate, not a final number?
So the estimate is a number that I came up with. It's based on our current year grant minus 15%. In my experience, and the data shows CDBG funding tends to be on a slowly downward trajectory. It varies year to year, but the overall trend is downward. 15% is fairly conservative, so hopefully when we get our actual allocation, it'll be greater than that number, and we'll be in the happy position of being able to increase grant allocations versus decreasing.
But for public expectation purposes, we don't know exactly when we're going to get our formal allocation. We know generally when we expect it, but...
So the earliest we could reasonably expect would be late February, early March. However, depending on congressional budgeting, it can be as late as May, honestly.
Okay.
And certainly as soon as I have that information, it will be posted to the website and provided to the committee as soon as I have it.
Yep, just trying to scale expectations, because last year we got a couple of like, oh, we didn't get it yet, oh, we didn't get it yet. But, I mean, we do our due diligence, we make our plan, we come up with the process for public hearings and to accept public comment well in advance of when it's necessary, so we won't get stuck trying to make a last minute decision.
That's correct. And I believe for the current program year we're in, we didn't receive the information until May.
Okay. Any other committee members have any questions before I open it up to public comment? All right, seeing none, thank you, Urban Programs Manager Long. Now taking testimony in favor of our 2024, fiscal year 2024 CDBG and Home Annual Action Plan Development. Seeing none, now taking testimony in opposition. All right, as nobody is present to testify in opposition to this, I will do one more round of taking testimony in favor. And then one more of opposition. All right, so the public hearing is declared closed at 7:05. And we will continue to monitor that as part of our ongoing monthly meetings. So anybody who's interested in learning more about that process or the agencies that are applying, you're welcome to check out the Urban Programs website or to check our meetings. Now moving on to our regular meeting, we're opening for public comment. Any members of the public wishing to make a public comment may come to the microphone, the podium right up here, and make that comment. I know we have a number of presenters from Harbor Care, so we'll be inviting you up to do your presentation separately as a presentation to the board. All right, so no members of the public wishing to make comment. President Oak, I guess, is your title. Who will be leading the presentation? All right, come on up, have a seat. I'm guessing we're driving this, so.
We are.
Because it's on our computer, so maybe.
Oh, is it like, in? Or click.
All right. So just a housekeeping note, they know our voices, especially those of us who talk incessantly, but you guys are new, so our transcribers need you to say your name and your title at the beginning of every comment that you make. Is that title correct, or did they want address?
Address. But,
Okay,
yeah.
name and address, sorry. So an example would be Tom Lopez, 54 Palm Street.
I guess they're an organization, so you can probably just say your title.
Yeah, there you go, okay. They'll yell at me if I'm wrong, it's fine. So if you'd like to begin?
So my name is Henry Josue Och. I am the president and CEO of Harbor Care at 77 Northeastern Boulevard, Nashua, New Hampshire.
Okay, and you have a presentation here if you want to walk us through.
Yes, I do. First off, thank you very much for the invitation from this committee to present on Harbor Care. The purpose of this presentation is to give the committee an overview of where we've been and where we're going. So these are our discussion points, which I'll go over. Next slide, please.
Line.
We got it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the mission of Harbor Care is to provide vital services, including housing and healthcare, to all in our communities needing assistance. So our mission drives everything that we do every day. Next slide. Our vision is more aspirational and has a more extended time horizon. And our vision is through our programs, setting the conditions where everyone gets to live a safe, stable, and healthy life filled with purpose, respect, and dignity. Now, our history extends back 40 years with a group home established here in Nashua. Over the course of that time, Harbor Care has established partnerships with other agencies and expanded through the addition of many programs intended to address the social determinants of health within the communities that we serve. In 2020, many of those partnerships coalesced to become Harbor Care as a corporate entity. Next slide. So currently, we offer many services based out of Nashua. However, many of these programs do extend beyond Nashua and across the state. Beginning with healthcare, we have a focus on the homeless population here in Nashua, where we provide primary care, mental health, HIV case management, dental services, and home health services. We also have a housing program which provides permanent supportive housing, and we also own properties where residents of Nashua reside. We do have an addiction treatment facility located at 615 Amherst Street, and we also provide peer recovery support services through many programs. We have a supportive employment program that has two arms, one of which is focused on our veterans and the other towards patients of our clinic. And we also have a very broad veteran services program, again, focused on the homeless population within the broader veteran population within the state of New Hampshire. Through our many programs, we have had quite a significant impact. We do touch the lives of over 5,000 residents across New Hampshire. Within the city of Nashua, we have ended veteran homelessness and have also ended homelessness for people living with HIV/AIDS. And we are currently working with many community partners to end veteran homelessness across the state. A very pretty significant achievement that we have made over the course of the past 18 months is we have been able to permanently house over 100 previously homeless veterans, and that's through the collaborative effort of not only our programs but our community partners. Next slide.
Oh, going backwards.
All right, looking ahead at 2023, these are our areas of focus. Number one here is the CEO transition. Within my new role as CEO, I am meeting with many external stakeholders, legislators, leaders of other community agencies, not only in Nashua but across the state, to get an understanding of their strategic direction, what are the observations of challenges and opportunities, so I can then take that information and bring it back to the team to influence the development of our strategic plan, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We are in the process of renovating 615 Amherst Street, known as a facility known as Keystone Hall. The facility is not closed. This is something that we have heard throughout the community. We have limited operations and are currently focusing on pregnant and parenting women, which is the second floor of the facility. The first floor is the floor that we are renovating, and the plans are currently up for state review. Once the state concludes their review, we will put the project out to bid, and we're hoping that construction will start at some point in the spring. We are in the process of developing a new 3-year strategic plan. I mentioned that the information that I'm gathering from our community partners will be an input to that plan. And we're very excited over what the future holds there. We are also very excited to announce the launch of the Staff Sergeant Fox Suicide Prevention Program. This is a program that's in collaboration with the VA. We will be setting up a program that will have a statewide reach to identify veterans that are at risk and linking them and their families up to the appropriate supports. We are also working to expand access to mental health care across several school systems to include Nashua and Milford. And it's very, very needed, as all of you are probably aware. The last point is something that I referenced earlier. We, alongside with many community partners, will be working on a plan to end veteran homelessness across the state. Last summer, we hosted a very successful summit on this topic, where we convened many community partners across the state and really began to establish a common vision, bringing in the various plans from the many from the COC, from the state and other areas. So that is really a snapshot of what we're going to be looking at 2023. We have a very dedicated, hardworking team, a very talented team, and I'm honored to be leading this organization. That concludes my presentation. I'll open it up for questions.
I have some. So it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of great work, and Harbor Homes, as it was previously known, was known for being a very holistic and wide-reaching organization. It's had a base at 45 High Street for some time, and I know one of the precipitating requests that we had a few months ago was there was interest in using CDBG money, I think, for infrastructure support or HVAC or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. Knowing that Keystone is one of your major facilities and it's under construction, since you are such a long-running program, do you foresee a need to kind of do a property evaluation and figure out what kind of upgrades you need, or is that something you might have already been doing?
So we are undertaking a process called a capital needs assessment across our facilities. A capital needs assessment looks at the physical structure of a building and outlines what are the areas that need to be repaired or replaced over an extended time horizon. In some cases, it's 20 years. In others, is 30. So we have done that for many of the properties here in Nashua. We're currently going through that process with our 77 Northeastern Boulevard facility, and we'll be doing that as part of the Keystone Hall renovation, and 45 High Street is also part of that process. And the elements that a CNA is looking at are HVAC systems and other systems to support the operation of the facility.
I know firsthand the Ash Street shelter is a very tired building, having been in continuous 24/7 operation for 30 years. Buildings like the Winter Street group home, you would expect them to be fatigued and kind of worn out, but having worked there as recently as maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I didn't find that to be the case, and I always attributed that to Harbor Care having an internal maintenance department that very diligently maintained the different facilities that were in place. So do you still have a program like that? And are there buildings that might have maybe inherited complexities? I know the one on Amherst Street is pretty historic, and so there's limitations on ways you can upgrade or modify it where it might, you might struggle to find a place for it in your organization.
So to answer your first question, yes, we still have an internal facilities department. We did decide to outsource the development of a capital needs assessment because it gives us an objective perspective on what needs to be done.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions? Alderman Kelly is the first one I saw, and then.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for coming. I had a couple of questions around some of your key focus. So you were talking about Keystone Hall and how you're working on the second floor, which is good information because people ask us lots of questions. Is the first floor do you do the same things there, or are you putting in new offerings there? What are you doing with
So the second floor is what is currently in operation. On the first floor, we are extending our medical clinic to include 2 examination rooms, a nurse's station, some additional support areas for medical assistants. We'll have the ability to have other services provided there, such as dental, once the renovation is complete. But what we're really excited about with the renovation project is we have hired an architect that has training in something called trauma-informed design. So as individuals are entering the facility, they'll be going into a building that is welcoming. It'll have an appropriate color palette that is not triggering. And in addition to that, we're making changes to the flow to make it a more pleasant experience for individuals coming to us in probably the most vulnerable state in their lives.
Great. I have another question, but I'll yield to Alderman Timmons.
Alderman Timmons?
Oh, thank you. I have some questions and then I'll yield the floor back to my colleagues. One of the questions I have, I need the list of all the things that's on the Harbor Home umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know specifically what they are, other than some, I do know,
Mhm.
but what's under that umbrella. And secondly, duplication of services. And I'm talking about the duplication of services specifically because I'm a veteran, okay? I'm a retired veteran. And those same services that you talked about, the VA actually have them. So I want to know how yours differ from the other services that the VA offer. Oh, let's for veterans, a veteran primary care, maybe it's the list go on and on and on. How is Harbor Homes taking care of veterans more so than the VA themselves? And could you explain that?
Sure. So to your first question in regards to the organizational structure of Harbor Care, I would be happy to submit an organization chart, which would reflect that in a graphical nature, and I can submit that after this meeting. In regards to the veteran programs, thank you for your service. I am a veteran myself, 21 years in the United States Army Infantry. So I can talk to the services that the VA provides for veterans, and they do great work. All of the programs that we have, for the most part, are in collaboration with the VA. They are our partner, with the exception of one, which I'll talk about in a second. So our transitional housing program, two of those facilities are here in Nashua. We have staff that provide case management services, but we get clinical support through VA social workers. So they are in our facilities providing those services. So that's our transitional housing program. We also have another program called the Supportive Services for Veterans and Families. That's another VA-funded program. They are what we like to call our boots on the ground. They conduct outreach activities. They go to homeless encampments to identify homeless veterans. And they really do great work and go above and beyond. Once that veteran is identified, they verify eligibility, and then get them to a safer place than where they are, whether that be in transitional housing, some type of shelter situation if that's appropriate, a hotel. But the goal with SSVF is to get individuals into permanent housing. We also have a homeless veterans reintegration program. This is the program that is not funded by the VA. It's funded by the Department of Labor. And what we do with that program is we work with previously homeless veterans. We link them up with job resources, additional training. We have relationships with many employers. We get them jobs. If they don't have clothes that are appropriate for an interview, we go out and buy them clothes and make sure that they get to the interview. And the last program that I'll mention is a permanent housing program that we have in Plymouth, New Hampshire. We provide housing to 30 previously homeless veterans. So everything that we do is in collaboration with the VA and funded by the VA in many cases.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question as well, because I'm a veteran, 22 years, I got to be like 1 year.
Just a housekeeping note, just don't forget to identify yourself when you speak. Mr. Oak.
What's that?
Our transcriber needs you to start with your name when you speak so that they can identify who the speaker is.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Again, being a veteran and very involved in veteran services myself, one of the things that's out there, I have a thing with duplication of services, because when you have duplication of services, I understand what you're saying, but I'm also very involved with the VA, and I'm also involved with other veteran organizations as well. It seems like it's a huge duplication of services where veterans fall through the gaps. For instance, Easter seals. What is the difference between our homes and Easter seals if it's not a duplication of service, and how we are letting veterans fall through the cracks because we have programs where the veterans themselves don't know which way to turn? How would you rectify that?
So within the Manchester Continuum of Care, we are very active within that area, so is Easter Seals. And within that particular community, our SSVF teams do interact with Easter Seals. And there is certainly a demand for beds. So we have transitional housing beds offered through our programs in Manchester. They have beds as well. So in collaboration with them, we're hoping that we will, and other partners, we're hoping that we can come together and address the needs of our homeless veterans and hopefully get to a point where we end veteran homelessness across the state. One of the things that I want to make very clear is that not one agency can do all this work alone. It's in partnership with other programs, with other nonprofits, that really is going to yield the results that our community and our veterans need.
Thank you.
Alderman Moran, do you have any questions?
Sure, why not? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think I speak for a lot of Nashua residents regarding the change in leadership. A lot of people are very happy that you've taken over. And I think you can't go wrong with Mike Zeckman as your Chief Human Resources Officer. I do get quite a bit of complaints regarding Harbor Care, whether it's from your employees or patients. One particular, the Amherst Street School, when I was a state representative, the social worker reached out and said they ended a clinician there during the pandemic to provide counseling to these kids. And nothing I can do, I'm not in charge of your agency, you guys make those decisions based on business needs. But the social worker was upset that the clinician didn't get a chance to terminate with those kids. I understand at some point another clinician took over. But I guess as an alderman, it would be, why would we allow you to use our infrastructure if that's going to be the type of management style you have with treating children in our city? And it hasn't happened since 2021. I'm sure things have changed since then. I know you guys just got $1 million or so from the county. So I'm hoping that I believe you're still using city infrastructure through schools. How do you prevent something like that from happening again?
Henry Oach. Thank you for the question. And thank you for sharing that. Throughout the course of the past several years, like other healthcare organizations, things have been very, very difficult. And it's important to note that during the pandemic, Harbor Care, like other agencies, stepped up and provided testing. Once that vaccines became available, we were providing vaccines as well. And we did not shut our doors across any of our programs. We continued to provide services. Over time, as the conditions changed, with funding coming into the organization and other organizations, we did need to make some decisions to make sure that we kept operating. And in some cases, those decisions might have had an unintended impact, which we do take very, very seriously. So the comment that you have brought forth, I'll take back to my team to make sure that in the event we have any disruption of service in the future, that that type of situation as described does not happen.
Thank you. Follow-up, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I forgot that you guys were coming tonight. Otherwise, I would have had a list prepared. When I saw Mike, I was surprised. So I apologize for not being more
It's
prepared.
in the agenda.
I know. I work a lot. So another complaint I had gotten from a veteran, actually, who's worked at Harbor Care for quite some time. He had insisted upon me that he's been passed over for Veterans Program Manager on numerous veterans grants that have come through. And at one point, you guys even used his resume to get the grant, and he was still passed over for the position for a non-veteran. You know, his belief about why he didn't get it is human resources related. I don't want to get into that. But I think if, you know, I know it's a federal grant. I told him to reach out to Gene Shaheen. I connected him with the senator's office. But he's a long time employee of your agency. At one point, he had a leadership position, but passing over a veteran for a non-veteran, his idea is that the housing director and installed are personal friends. But I think if we want to promote veteran services, I think a competent person who's a veteran leading those agencies would be good. Also, with the understanding that this is the government and we're not telling you how to run your company.
Thank you for that, Henry Ochigan. So when we're looking at filling positions within the organization, it is done in a very objective fashion. We look at not only experience, education, but also other factors, and we bring all of that to the table to make sure that we make the right decision. In regards to hiring veterans within Harbor Care, our Director of Veteran Services is an active duty veteran. The Program Manager for our Supportive Services for Veterans and Families is a veteran. Our Program Manager for our Staff Sergeant Fox Suicide Prevention Grant is a veteran. I'm a veteran. Collectively, we all appreciate the value that those who have served in uniform bring to the table, and I think that the board's selection, their selection of me as a candidate for this role demonstrates the organization's commitment to veterans and the value that they bring to the table.
Thank you. I think one last follow-up.
Ask Alderman Kelly in just 1 second. I just want to comment that I appreciate the questions being brought up because a lot of these are concerns that sort of get telephoned around or spread via rumor. So it's important to be able to air them and then have them addressed in a qualified and informed manner. So I also appreciate Harbor Care coming to present on their services, to set their record straight, to express who they are today and the efforts that have gone into making the organization what it is. Like Alderman Timmons, I find duplication of services to be something that we need to be attentive to, but in my opinion, duplication of services is more a focus on somebody who's being overserved and oversupported. And I think Harbor Care addresses a lot of areas where there's a shortage of organizations that are willing to actually step forward and help commit their resources, their vision, their plan. So I commend the work that Harbor Care's board has done on consolidating and contracting the organization to be a more sustainable one. I do think there are some community concerns surrounding reliability because there is the old adage, beggars can't be choosers, but they can and they should be. And people who are struggling in their most vulnerable states need to be served with the highest level of care. So the city does have a role in assuring its citizens and its taxpayers who are funding our collaboration with different endeavors, that our partners are reliable and they're providing much needed services and they're not frivolous or, duplicated or unnecessary. There's a lot of hard work that goes into designing those programs, executing them every day. Those programs will be running tonight while we're all asleep. So I appreciate all of the work that Harbor Care has done on that end. And I would just ask if there are any specific areas that you think might change the tone of Harbor Care, in particular contracting your mission, some areas where you think you work really well, and some other areas where, as a city, maybe there's gaps or shortages that we could collaborate on.
Henry, once again, thank you for the question. I think it's important to highlight that as Harbor Care's programs came together as one agency, it happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's very difficult to build an organizational culture when folks at that point were operating in a bit of a hybrid environment, largely remote for some programs. So as I look at my work looking forward as CEO, one of my priorities is to ensure that we have a strong, collaborative, and inclusive culture within the organization that has the patient, the client at the center of everything that we do. And we have several initiatives that are currently underway to support that.
So if I'm hearing what you're describing, and if I recall from my own memory, the timeline that you were representing earlier, Harbor Home started as an effort to provide group home supports for people who are inpatient and need a place to be discharged to that provided medical supports. Over time, they acquired or partnered with or combined with like the National Council on Alcoholism, the Southern Hampshire HIV Task Force, the Healthy at Homes, and a number of Milford Counseling, I forget the name of it. But basically, a number of different 501c3s with different boards, different missions, and different purposes were all assembled under what was called the Partnership for Successful Living. Mm-hmm. And what we've been seeing in branding it as Harbor Care and consolidating boards and focusing on strategic planning is the unification of those different organizations. But as you described, it's a little easier said than done, bringing together such a diverse group of people with diverse missions under one roof and still maintaining the expected level of services, the arrays of things that have been established 40 years ago, and engaging the staff who have, many of whom have been present through it all, but many who come in with new ideas and fresh voices. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, it is. It is. The work to bring people together under a common mission and vision does not happen overnight. It takes time and it takes effort, and it's one of my primary responsibilities.
Okay. Alderman Kelly, I think I've kept you waiting long enough.
It's all good. I have a couple of questions. And I'm going to bring us back to your focus for the strategic future. I actually wanted to bring up the mental health in schools. It perked my ears up. I know that school-age children are going through a lot, and even adults are going through a lot post-pandemic, and we have limited resources in the schools. So what does that program look like? I know it was mentioned by one of my other colleagues, but what are the success measures that you've seen, and what would you like to roll out in the future?
So the need that is present within the school systems has really been exacerbated by the after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, with the isolation and all the many challenges that the pandemic has presented to our populations. Currently, our school-based programs are small. We have really one full-time clinician, a very talented clinician that's providing support to the school systems. So in order to provide services, we will need to bring on board more clinicians, social workers, licensed clinical social workers, mental health providers. And currently the market is very difficult. These professionals are in very, very high demand. Not only by agencies based here out of New Hampshire, but also some national telehealth firms. So competition is very, very, very difficult right now.
If I could follow up on that, so it sounds like you'd like to grow that, but it's really going to be dependent on being able to staff it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're not unique in that challenge. I've had the opportunity to meet with the CEO of the Greater National Mental Health Center, and hiring challenges exist there. Lamprey Health challenges exist there, and we're working through them, but it is difficult.
Thank you. The other big piece, I'm sure you know, housing is huge in Nashua, in the nation, in terms of having enough of it, having enough affordability. I know you touched a little bit on having group homes. I'm not as familiar with your organization, so could you give me a sense of what your housing or affordable housing portfolio looks like now and what you might see it looking like in the future?
Sure. So through our housing department, we have a number of different services. We do own properties within Nashua, which we do rent out. We also provide permanent supportive housing services. These are trained professionals who work with individuals who need additional supports to remain housed. We also manage a mainstream voucher program, also known as Section 8. So we do issue those vouchers to individuals within the community. Sometimes they stay within the city of Nashua. In other cases, it's very difficult to find housing, so we look at other areas. We're certainly we continue to be open and open to explore acquiring additional properties to provide more housing. But the market conditions right now are very unfavorable, and we're very cognizant of that. But it's still an open door for us.
And then I have one more follow. Oh, Julie, go ahead. Did you want to comment? Go ahead.
Urban Programs Manager Long?
Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager. I think it's also important to note that Harbor Care is the lead agency for the Greater Nashua Continuum of Care, which is the big collaboration that addresses homeless needs in the Greater Nashua region.
Thank you for that.
And my follow-up will be some statement, some question, but I think this year, especially the last couple of years, for whatever reasons, whether it's COVID, homelessness has been something that I've been continually approached by citizens about, whether it's in the downtown area or just people are really struggling coming out of COVID, that kind of thing. So, and I'm on the soup kitchen board, so I hear how much the community needs. So it's really, really important for me. You may not know this answer, but I'm wondering if we're getting any faster on when you put your name on that Section 8 line and then when you finally get a call, because I've heard anecdotally it can be years. Is that still the case?
So we have a limited amount of vouchers, and we do have some cycling of those vouchers. So we might see a situation where an individual might exceed the income guidelines, so then that voucher becomes available, and almost as soon as it's available, it's consumed. We also have individuals that move out of the area that frees up a voucher, and again, once it's available, it's consumed. So yes, the wait can be extended.
Great.
It's also worth noting that having a voucher doesn't mean you have a place to use it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other challenge. We do have individuals that have vouchers in hand and have had them for 30, 45, 60 days, and finding an apartment is just very, very difficult.
Can I ask a follow-on? I wasn't
Yeah.
going to ask another question, but you made one. In that case, is it because fewer apartment buildings are willing to accept them, or there's just no vacancies at all?
I think it's a combination of both.
Love to see us work on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, I think it's worth noting that when you have a high competition and like the opportunity to charge high amounts of rent, then maybe you're not really trying to help out your fellow man and take in people who are in structured programs. But if you're working in programs that are voucher driven, there's a lot of really good incentives and a lot of oversight that goes into those in partnership that makes them a safer long-term investment. So I would hope landlords are starting to look in that direction instead of trying to just raise rents and, you know, increase capital and those types of things. There have been a number of factors that are regional in nature, including our own property revaluation, which drove prices up because it was very poorly timed. And that puts landlords in a bind. It's difficult to help others and to take on maybe more complex clients when you could take the young professional from Boston who's just going to use it for the weekend and then, you know, during the week he's not going to cause any trouble. But what you do get in my experience has been a lot of support from Harbor Homes, Harbor Care, from their staff. You get people who are a known quantity who understand, you know, the value of having a place. There's a lot of attributes that I think Harbor Care could probably promote with their housing program more publicly, because I know that the housing program probably has the biggest list of landlords in the city, like the most number of relationships, but there's always new people who are intimidated by the idea or the belief that it's going to take some kind of major overhead to serve these different programs, but it's very much needed. And just because the capacity isn't immediately here today doesn't mean that the problem is going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Alderman Timmons?
Yes, I have, I think, two other questions, and then I'll leave them out. Okay?
No problem.
Delaney House falls on Harbor Homes, right?
Yes.
The turnaround time for living at Delaney's is how long?
So within, the Landis House is part of what we call our grants per diem program. And within the program, we have a goal for our veterans there to be in the program no more than 24 months. So upon entry, in collaboration with the VA, we develop a service plan identifying what their needs are and mapping out milestones with the goal of getting them to a permanent housing situation. So within that facility, however, we do have 5 permanent housing units. So some of our veterans were able to shift from a previous transitional housing situation to a permanent housing situation within the same facility.
Well, you just cleared up one of my questions, but I'm glad you pointed that out. Also, what happened if the 24 months is up and they're not ready to transition out? What happened at that point?
So that does happen from time to time. It doesn't happen very often. When we're coming close to that threshold, we work with the VA to develop alternate plans. Ultimately, we're providing supports to our veterans during that 2-year period, getting them linked up to a job if they can work, to a voucher. And helping them look for apartments. And what we convey to them is we're giving you the tools and the resources to succeed. And many times it's a great success. But if they get to that point, then we need to look at other arrangements in collaboration with the VA, because ultimately that service intensive bed is in demand. There's somebody else that's coming in with probably more acute needs. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that we continue to have that cycle continue.
Thank you.
Just to confirm the obvious, you can't exactly kick someone out on day, the 24th, month, day 2. and then have them be homeless in the community that you're trying to end veterans
Right,
homelessness. So
right.
clearly that's not just like, oh, well, come back in and start over.
Mhm.
Okay, Alderman Rand, more questions?
Yeah, maybe one or two. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess one of the other big things that I hear all the time is sustainability of programs and employee turnover in the community, because unemployment and people losing their jobs is a big deal, because a lot of your employees live here in Nashua.
Mhm.
And we had just heard from your response to Alderwoman Kelly regarding it being difficult to maintain those mental health clinicians. I know for a fact, at least some of the folks you've been releasing from employment are licensed clinicians. I know that because I've hired them and they work for me, they're licensed and I bill for them. So in that same vein, I don't know what the HR stuff is, don't care. But when they're so in need and they are treating people, what is the goals for your company to maintain the ones that you do have, so you don't have to fight over private companies like mine or larger nationwide companies like BetterHelp?
Okay. Henry Oach again. Thank you for the question. So when operating a program, specifically a nonprofit program within a nonprofit agency, the main driver is the mission, but alongside that, we also need to make sure that the program is financially viable, so we can continue to provide services. As we are looking at new programs, evaluating new grant opportunities, the area of sustainability is receiving a significant amount of focus. When nonprofits acquire a grant, oftentimes that's a one-time funding source. And when we're looking at the 3 to 5 year projection of a program, we need to factor in what happens once this grant funding is gone. Can we sustain this program? If the answer is yes, then looks like a viable program option. If the answer is no, then perhaps another agency can utilize those grant funds to make that happen. So that's the lens that we're looking through as we're evaluating program opportunities, it is it's an approach that is objective, while also looking at the needs of the community, and again understanding that not one agency can do it all. Perhaps another community partner can do it better.
And your goal is to retain existing clinical staff?
Our goal is to retain as many employees as we can, to include our clinical staff. Right now, what we're seeing within the healthcare community is quite a bit of burnout, which we're very aware of, and it's causing staff at all levels to, specifically clinicians, to ask themselves, is this the job that I want right now? There are many options, unfortunately, for employers like us.
I definitely hear you on the difficulty in finding clinicians. I only deal with mental health and nurse practitioners, maybe a psychiatrist one day. But private companies, especially things like BetterHelp, they're in a much better position to pay better and offer better benefits, because they most likely only take private insurance. Yeah. I do understand you guys get the FQHC rate, which is a lot better than anything I can get from Medicaid. But I think people listening at home should know that private companies are a lot more competitive with pay and benefits than local nonprofits, which is understandable given the business that you're in. You're not in it to make a profit.
Right, and thank you for bringing up the federally qualified community health center rate. As an FQHC, one of the driving tenets behind that program is to provide care regardless of a patient's ability to pay. So we have a sliding fee that individuals are placed on based on family size and income. In some cases, an individual's visit, if they don't have insurance, can be really a small fraction of what the actual visit would cost, and the reimbursement that we get through the federal government accounts for that uncompensated care. So that's one of the main reasons why I joined Harbor Care, because of its FQHC program and the mission that they're in to provide equitable access to care. We're very lucky to have Harbor Care here in the community, in addition to Lamprey, the other FQHC in town.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, any further questions? Thank you very much for coming and presenting on the different work that your organization is doing. Thank you to everyone in your organization who's doing it. As was said, like, private practitioner therapists could totally work for some company from their house and, not really have to put themselves right in the same room with people who are really struggling, but yours do it every day, and your staff are working to run group homes and programs for veterans and all that kind of stuff every day, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming up.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, do you need your USB back? Okay.
All right, next up, we have communications.
We have communication from Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, regarding Community Development Block Grant Reallocation Sewer Programs. We have another communication from Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, regarding Urban Programs Department updates, November, December 2022. We also have a communication from Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, regarding Community Development Block Grant FY 2024 grant applications. And finally, we have a communication from Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, regarding 2022 Nashua Community Development Citizen Survey.
Julie, I feel like you missed us this month. Without objection, I'll accept these communications and place them on file. All right. Unfinished business?
There is none.
New business resolutions.
We have before us R 22-078, amending the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2023 relative to the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. I will move to recommend final passage.
And Urban Programs Manager Long, would you like to come up and give us a quick summary? I know we all received a communication regarding this.
Good evening, Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager. This resolution is pretty simple. We had 2 sewer projects that are already approved and CDBG funded for the current program year. One was for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Nashua, and the other was for the Nashua Children's Home, I believe. Yes, Nashua Children's Home. The bids came in low for one and came in high for the other. So what we are requesting is simply to move the unused funds for the one project to the project that came in over estimates.
Okay. I think that was Boys and Girls Club was getting their backing up swimming pool fixed and managed to do it on their budget. And then I forget exactly what the Children's Home was doing, but the Children's Home was the one who needed a little bit more, and because we have it, we're shifting it over.
Yes. Yeah, both involve their sewer pipes.
All right. Any questions from the board? Timmons, is that your hand up? Or?
Oh, no, I was thinking about the children's home, and this is my, Director Long might answer this question. Are they doing renovations on that home right now? The children's home. Seems like every time I go past there, there's something that's happening.
Yes, we're doing something on 2 of their buildings this current year. One is getting the sewer. The other is getting insulation installed.
I was kind of made a reference to older buildings. Some of the older programs in Nashville are using like truly historic buildings, and the children's home might be one of the, I think, if not the oldest, one of the oldest nonprofits we have. So they're always struggling to keep it running because you can't exactly say like, well, we're not going to do it this year because those are orphans. They need support. Any further questions?
No, I just was wondering.
All right, without objection, we will, well, should
We gotta vote on it. Yeah.
Okay. So all in favor of recommending final passage to amending the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's annual action plan for fiscal year 2023 relative to the Community Development Block Grant, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. New business ordinances?
There are none.
There is business table in committee, urban program managers law. Must we take that from the table?
Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager. This is still tabled. We did finally get a response to our request for technical assistance for our allocation plan draft. And they were very generous. They provided a lot of comments. I'm currently working on revisions. So this will be back up in February so we can meet our March submission deadline. And I'll get you my revised draft as soon as it's finished.
So then remaining on the table is, I should have read that.
R 22060.
Yep, I'm accepting funds and adopting an allocation plan for the U.S. Department of Urban Housing and Urban Development Fund Home Investment Partnerships Program funds received through the American Rescue Act. So we'll keep that on the table at least until next month. General discussion? Oh, Alderman Rand?
Thank you. I would just like to thank Harbor Homes for coming in tonight. I think many in the community had concerns about the previous leadership there. That person has since gone, been replaced by, seems to be a quality type person who answered our questions pretty directly and seems to be following up on our concerns that we voiced today. So I think as a whole, the community should give them a second shot.
Yeah, in the spirit of direction, discussion, I think the community has no choice. I think there's a lot of need in Nashua, and there's a lot of gaps to be filled, and we do need to make sure that there are good stewards and good people working in those programs, but we also need we need all the help we can get in a lot of areas because we're seeing so many other municipalities, even in New Hampshire, struggling with the load of need. We can't turn away from people when there's someone who is able to help them.
And I do hope that they take our concerns seriously so our constituents don't have to keep calling us when they get laid off here and there and fired. And most importantly, the children of Nashua who have a school counselor when they walk into school during a pandemic.
Yeah, that's particularly important. Any further items for discussion? Urban Programs Manager Long.
Julian Long. One item regarding the grant applications received for FY 2024 Community Development Block Grant funding. It was not received by grant application, but I did talk with urban program staff, and they would like to request $125,000 for the housing improvements program and $25,000 for the rental improvements program, which are both not run by nonprofits, but programs we run in-house. And those numbers will be reflected in an updated memo I will send you. The other item I have is a request for information on how you would like to, for the grant application review process to proceed, especially whether you would like to invite grant applicants to present before you on their applications.
So speaking for myself and then going to the board, I would absolutely like them to present because I think it's important for transparency and for them to be able to express their needs in their own voice before the committee. But how do other people feel? Alderman Kelly?
I know in the past, I think that having people come in if they have the ability to do so makes the most sense. I know in the past we've done sort of a general set of questions at the beginning. What would you do if you only got partially funded? How important is this for this year? Could you spread it out? Things like that. That's also a really nice way to sort of start the conversation with these applications. And then when they come in, we have a little bit of context. So I'd love to see us go that way again. And I believe, Julian Long, your previous position holder, helped us facilitate those conversations.
Additional input from the board?
I concur. I would love to see public presentations. And it also gives us a chance to see everything in more detail. Not that Director Long would misrepresent anything, but I think us getting to see the overview of the project up front with the people who are going to be instituting it is a great idea.
I think particularly for the work of this committee, it's educational too, because it's really important to stay, informed and knowledgeable about different programs that are going on. And I pride myself on really trying to keep up with the different organizations, but it seems like the more you get to know and connect with the newer, emerging ones, the less time you have to connect with the more established and traditional ones. And it's important to keep them all in mind. So I hope that guidance is helpful for you.
Julian Long, yes, that is very helpful. I will check to see if I can find the copy of questions from previous years' grants or draft something to submit for the committee's review. Another follow-up question, would you like all the applicants invited to present on the same committee meeting, or would you like them divided into two groups in interests of time management?
I'd say probably the second if the board agrees. Because there's no guarantee as chair, I can't say that we won't have other grants coming in either. So it might make more sense to spread it out a little.
So if I could, my question was, do we already have all the applications? How many do we have? Because some years we get a lot, sometimes, it'd be interesting to know the number.
It goes in the committee.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager. Yes, the applications were due in December, so we do have them all. And we received 10 applications from 9 different organizations. So there will be 9 organizations presenting. There is the possibility that we will have another request for funding from within a city department. I don't have that information yet, but I received indications from Director Matt Sullivan that that might be forthcoming. And if that does come, I will let the committee know as soon as I receive that.
My preference would be to just do it all at once. And then any internal departments that have needs could come the same night. It's nice because you hear everybody at once. You're not trying to remember back 2 or 3 months. And I know there's a timeline for finishing this stuff.
Urban Program Manager Long, could you clarify that timeline for us? Is that the one that could vacillate anywhere between April and the end of May?
Julian Long, yes, that is correct. So I think it would be a good target to have your recommendations for the full Board of Aldermen finalized by your March meeting. Then we can have the second public hearing in ideally April and full Board of Aldermen approval by May. Theoretically, May 15th is when we're supposed to submit our action plans. However, that changes if we don't receive our actual grant allocation within 60 days of that deadline, then it gets extended.
A recommendation I might offer then is that you also coordinate with Alderman Dowd so that hopefully we can get our meetings done before he starts with budget committee meetings, because once we start talking about the city budget, he's got every square inch booked up. It does make sense to try to, review these kind of things and have everything done early. We'd like to be slightly more efficient than Congress if we can. But at the same time, we don't want to rush the nonprofits either. So maybe leave the door open that if there's a couple stragglers, maybe we could put them into a different meeting if needed.
If I could.
Julian Long, if there are no objections, I can request that they come present at your February meeting.
Okay. Alderman Kelly.
That was going to be my comment. Given that the timeline you just laid out, February we would listen to everybody, and March we would spend the time doing our fun Excel document fill-in, which is mostly conjecture until we get the numbers. And then we have to table it and come back and fix it once we get the actual numbers.
Julian Long, I do have a recommendation as to that. You can also, when you vote on your allocations, you can build in contingencies if you wish to do so. And that can be incorporated at the Board of Aldermen level as well. Such as if we receive more funding than anticipated, it's evenly distributed, or it all goes to this nonprofit, or there's a variety of different ways you can structure it. But that way
Walk
you
out a
would,
hill and have like a pig run around.
We haven't
Yes.
done it that way in the past, but that's actually smart.
But that way you don't have to repeat public input processes or do another round of resolution review and voting.
Awesome.
It is an option, it's not a requirement.
Okay. Any further input from the committee? Seeing none. Any further topics for discussion? Okay. Public comment.
Yeah,
Seeing
that's
no
true.
members of the public available, I'll move on to remarks by the alderman. Alderman
I just
Moran.
want- So, Manager Long, I just remind, so I won't be here in February. I'll be on medical leave, so I'll catch whatever the presentations are via YouTube. So if in case, I'll announce it at the full board, but in case anyone's wondering, I'll be out for 4 to 6 weeks having a surgery. Where's my alderman? Don't pay me if you don't want to. If I miss enough meetings, I don't care, but I just need to have the surgery.
I believe medical exemptions are part of the,
Oh, they are.
Well, that wouldn't be fair.
Alderman
I
Dennis.
still think it has to go through the,
That wouldn't be fair not to pay. Well, anyway.
Alderman Timmons.
Thank you. I want to report on a 17-year-old missing young lady from Manchester. She haven't been seen for 14 days. She is Lorraine Springer Adu. She was last seen outside of Manchester High School on January 4th around noon. She was seen walking across Main Street near the school. Springer is described as 5'4", 150 pounds with white and black hair, and dark rimmed glasses. She was last seen wearing a backpack and dark colored jacket. They are urging the public to call Manchester Police about Lorraine whereabouts at 603-668-6711. And this is a picture of how she looked. And her parents called me today and left this information in my box here at City Hall. So she may be in Nashua, and she may not be, but if you've seen this young lady, please call that number. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Alderman Kelly, anything?
I'm good.
I have I have a bunch of announcements. Okay, so this Saturday, Involved Impact is having a charity trivia match at Liquid Therapy. Anybody interested in signing up is definitely encouraged to do so in advance. You can go to involvedImpact.org if you're interested in participating in that. The Ward 4 Town Hall meeting is next Wednesday, the 25th at 6 p.m. The Mayor's Opioid Task Force meeting is Wednesday morning. For more information on that, you can contact the Public Health Department. And then finally, the Main Street Crime Watch. We're having our inaugural meeting at Caribbean Breeze right next door to City Hall. And that will be on Monday, January 30th at 9 a.m. We'll be talking about current police activities on Main Street, any concerns on the part of business owners. We will have some of the outreach programs there to share information about their programs. So anybody who's able to attend, that's Monday, January 30th at 9 a.m. Alderman Kelly.
I changed my mind, thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody who made the new shelter at 35 Spring Street. They were able to open for the first time as a permanent overnight shelter on the 13th. They had over, that's 40, yep, 40 people stay that evening, and they're still working on finishing opening the rest of the different levels. But it was a really huge undertaking and such an important piece of meeting the needs of the community, so.
It's definitely needed. Alderman Kelly, if you have information that contradicts this, my understanding is they are not currently taking new intakes because although when the shelter is completed, it will have greater capacity, they haven't fully completed it yet. So they're able to transition people over to it, but they're not taking new intakes.
I don't have the answer for that, but I can get it for you at my board meeting on Thursday.
Okay, anybody attempting to find shelter, I would highly recommend calling 211 or using the city's coordinated access system, which is 1-844-800-9911. The coordinated entry system is staffed by the Soup Kitchen's outreach staff, even on the weekends. So again, if you're trying to get into shelter, the best way to do it is to call that number, 1-844-800-9911. With no further business, can I have a motion?
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned at,
Oh, we gotta vote on that.
oh, fine.
8:14.
Sure, you're gonna-
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All those who are not in favor of adjourning,
Nay.
you may now say nay.
Nay.
Seeing none, we are adjourned at 8:15 PM.
I'm none now?